Friday, or not Friday. Happy Thursday, everyone. See, that is how like messed up I am in terms of like space time and things. We did have a holiday this week, so I have a reason. But happy Thursday. We are here going to be talking about the Peruvian tradition of nature mysticism, specifically all about the Yanapak, which in this tradition is translates basically to spirit allies or spirit guides. And we'll be talking about the tradition, the Yanapak, and whatever else comes up from your questions.
That's right. Yeah. And it's funny because I had to go digging through all of my old notes and I'm like, how did I end up with 3 binders? How I have 3 sets of notes on all the things. So we have comparisons to go over.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like every year, everything's always a little different. And that I think speaks to just how like Zane has had so many teachers from so many different villages and everything that like there's similarities, but there's subtle differences. And the important thing, as we talked on previous streams, they don't make each other wrong for it. You know, they don't say, oh, you're doing it wrong. They say, cool, you're doing it differently. Why are you doing it that way? And they look at the difference because they say the difference is in the gold. And that's the beautiful thing about this tradition where you can collaborate, not make each other wrong, and actually build on one another. And it's just a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to show how it can change year to year and how the information can be so expansive that if all of this information came down in one afternoon, I think people would just be zombies by the end of the day with all of that information trying to come in. But it's good to flex and change and give that ability to flex for who the student is and ultimately who the client will end up being if you're using any of this in that healing modality for the day for the client.
Very good. And of course, I will put up questions are welcome. Where's my... Actually, I'm in a different studio. Okay, well, I won't put up anything at the moment. I'm just like throwing myself off now. But where we're going to start with, for people who are joining us just for the first time, what we're talking about is the Qatari tradition of cross-cultural shamanism, or cultural nature mysticism, to be more appropriate, because the word shaman is referring to one very specific tribe in the Siberian region of Russia. But anyway, it is a blending of the Q'ero tradition from way high up in the mountains where the Spanish could not go and conquer, as well as a lot of the coastal traditions. There's a lot of similarities, and Zane has created this blending of these Peruvian traditions, and he's the author of Inka Mountain Magic. Melissa has his books, and she has access to a lot more books if she needs them. So if anything that we talk about sparks your interest, you can easily pick up a copy of Inka Mountain Magic and kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive. And of course, ask any questions that you may have as we go through the information.
Mm-hmm. So how do we want to get started in this? This almost feels like maybe a description, like what is the Yanapak?
Yeah. So the Yanapak is a grouping of 7 different spirit allies. And it starts with animals, and then it goes into people, and then eventually just like the concept of God. But one thing I find interesting, and something that Zane has talked about, is whenever there's like a universal truth or cosmic truth, whatever you want to call it, you will find similar information, not the same, in different regions. And one thing that I always thought was interesting is when I studied at Fellowships of the Spirit in Lilydale and started to learn about spiritualism, and a lot of the branches of spiritualism, they had a spirit band, which was, guess how many? 7 different spirit allies that are assigned to you from birth to death that all have different jobs. And it's just interesting that there's also 7 there. We have 7 in our tradition. And I think it's a great validation that there is a similar energy coming through. And I'm sure it shows up in a lot of other places too, that there's 7. And that also correlates maybe to the 7 chakras, maybe to the 7 rays, if you look at metaphysics. And they're all, in a way, different personifications of very specific types of energies that we are looking to balance in this life. And these are the allies to help do that.
Mm-hmm. Crazy that everything's coming back to 7. It feels like that sci-fi book, like what is the secret of life? What is the secret of happiness?
And it's 7?
No, it was a different number, but it was a number.
Well, I do like 7 though, because like if you think of like if you have the unmanifested light, right, it goes from there to a triune. Then you have like the 3 primary colors, and it goes from there to tertiary, right? Then it has 7. It's 7 different vibrations of energy, like as light goes through a prism. And then if you keep going, you have the color wheel that has a virtually infinite amount of colors, like these different gradients, and all these different colors all have, like if you look at the zodiac wheel, all these different types of energies that have skilled and unskilled, unconscious and more conscious applications of the energy. And I kind of think of it like that. It's like one energy breaking down into more and more and more differentiations. That is really why we're here, to experience all this wonderful variety in this playground of possibility.
So why might somebody, Hank, want to find out what their Yanapak is, who's in there, and use it?
Oh, whoa, what was that? It's like the mothership landing.
Yeah, that's my annoying air conditioner. It's a necessary evil for me.
Okay. Well, in a way, think about your body like a car, okay? And you're driving this car, and this car has all kinds of features. And all these features, if you were to use them, could make your ride through life more enjoyable. It could make your ride easier if you have four-wheel drive through a snowstorm and things like that. Your Yanapak is essentially your features, it's your resources. But the relationship and the ability to use them skillfully comes from building relationship. This tradition's all about building relationship. So you dive in and you start to connect with these things and finding out what they can do for you, and you're starting to walk hand in hand through your experience of life with all these additional resources. And you might hear a lot of teachers talk about like the prime directive, like you have to be able to ask for the help and be willing to receive it. It's not automatic. So you really dive in with the intention to develop the relationships and then utilize them to make your life easier.
Nice. Because I think most people are used to hearing about, oh, you have one or two spirit guides and you've got your guardian angel, right? So to be like, no, you can have a whole bunch. And some of the, like, you can decide when you're going to change working with certain ones in certain levels. So which I enjoyed that fact, because depending on the situation, you're going to need different guidance. Who was it? Somebody made the relation, like, if you were trying to bake a great cake, you're not going to just keep that spirit ally who was like a great painter, because what does that painter know about baking a cake? They're going to be standing there just as, befuddled as you are, of like, if we're doubling that recipe, what does that mean? And if we don't have butter, can we use applesauce? What do they mean?
Well, and I think part of it too, like you have these guides that are part of you from birth to death. There are also in other traditions, spiritualism, the northern traditions, you would have guides for specific purposes. So you might intentionally go after, if you want pathfinder energy, maybe you look at a wolf totem, or you might have a spirit come and go as you are starting a new job. You might have a spirit helper come in that used to do it in that lifetime, but it's only for a season. Just like sometimes friendships, you have a lot of friendships that are lifelong, and then there's some friendships that are for a season. The same is true for spirit allies. Some are there for the long haul, and others come and go. And some, it might not even be them coming to you. You could be going to them, and like calling in an energy in particular of a spirit that, or someone in spirit that has a quality that you want to develop in this life.
Mm-hmm. So we mentioned different levels. And they're, well, the 7. Do we want to get into the whole levels in 7, or do we just want to keep it?
I think the levels is a whole separate stream.
Probably. Even though
Definitely.
I have notes galore. Notes I forgot I have taken in all of these. Again, I'm like, how I don't remember 3 binders, but I've got 3 binders.
If you want to dive in, let's dive in. We can keep it organic, and it's one's an ally, and the levels are like ways to look at things, and we can dive into it all. That does overlap quite a bit. Because we have somebody saying, yes, 7 levels. They want to dive in, because there's 7 levels, there's 7 planes of reality, there's 7 rays, there's all kinds of things with 7, but the 7 levels, it is relevant, so we can do it. But you'll have to speak to it more, because I do not prepare for talking about the levels.
I mean, we won't go too deep, because we only have an hour to do this before other
Allegedly.
things have to be done. Yeah. So I think there's even like the 7 spheres of like angels and archangels. So maybe 7 is the answer. I don't remember what it was in that book, but I don't think it was just 7.
Well, because in the with the Sephirah out the Kabbalah, there's like a ruling archangel over each sphere, and then there's like a nighttime angel and a daytime angel for each sphere, and then that continues to break down. But I don't know where 7 would come in with spheres. That's like a whole different reference set, probably, that
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Whoever read the Terry Pratchett book, what was that number? So we have your first, which is what, a serpent, and that's 0. That is creation point. We can even get into brain function, because we went into that too. So your serpent, your those that are close and inside the ground, and it might even kind of sound familiar to last week's discussion of like Pachamama in a way. But this is where, you may or may not pick which type of serpents. You may already have one that you feel drawn to, but you can also change. At one point, I think I had written down like salamander. Is working for that level for me at that time. So this would be the lower brain, just the brain stem of the human brain. Instinctual protection of itself, tracking things through scent. So not as much thought process. It's all reactionary, but it's also like that primal, the very beginning. What do you have for your serpent?
Yeah, well, for me, it was, and the way that we found these, incidentally, is during class, Zane walked us through like an exercise where we would have the experience of like connecting with them. And mine was a turtle. And I was so sure it was going to be something else, like a dragon or something. And when I got turtle, I was kind of like, oh, turtle. But then it's totally like later on, I'm like, this is totally my Yanapak. So like I would encourage people too, to if you were to get into this, like don't judge what shows up. Like it will make sense later on potentially. And if I remember Zane saying it correctly, it was anything cold-blooded. It was the first one, but traditionally it would be the serpent. And that's why we're talking about this week. It was such a great overlap from last week when we were talking about just the animals of the tradition, where here we're going to be talking about some people too.
Yeah, we'll get into humans. Then you had your mammal animal. No surprise for me. That was, I have my 3 choices or 2, my big cats, and I love bats. And in this meditation this time around, it was the bat. You're getting into your mammal brain. Notice similarities, differences, trust, similarities, fear, differences. So that logical processing coming up. Which in the traditional Peruvian, so for that first one, it was the Amaru, your serpent, and then animal would most often would be with llama. And it's funny because mine was also winged, and I'm like, is that bird or is that mammal? Is that going to be bird or is that going to be mammal? I spent more time trying to figure that out for myself than what to happen because I was overthinking it. Who did you have for your warm-blooded?
My warm-blooded ended up being a bear, which is surprising because years ago, I really, wolf was one of my main animals, and I was getting a wooden flute from a local artist, and I really wanted a wolf, but all he had was a bear, and I bought that, and then years later, it became so relevant. And then also, there is significance in the tradition for where that region would have been star-seeded from, and it's like Urza the cosmic bear or whatnot. So there's I thought it was cool. I learned that later on, but mine was bear. Traditionally, though, I thought it was like the puma was like the main mammal, but the llama was also very significant to the Karo. So both would be really relevant in terms of like a traditional choice.
Mm-hmm. So then you're going to get into your spiritual bird, your flying, which again, bat. Which one does it go into? Surprisingly, like for me on that one was cardinal, which I really like. I can recognize them out there in nature, but I never really had a big drawing to it. So it was kind of a surprise for me when that one came through. But at that time, it turned out that there were some issues going on, health related, to a family member who happened to love cardinals. So came into play that way. your bird brain ability to navigate, solve mathematics, right? Think of crows and ravens that can have higher functioning, problem solving and can do simple math. Being able to adjust their navigation, pinpoint and track from sight. So different type of hunting, but now you're getting into different types of, problem solving from up high.
And mine was the hummingbird, and they've always been really significant to me. So I wasn't surprised to have the hummingbird show up for me. And I also look at all these things as like allies to help you navigate each one of the worlds. So like the snake was like the underworld, the mammal is the middle world, and the winged friend is for the upper world. So I also look at them for those purposes too.
Mm-hmm. Which is, again, shows the flexibility that working with these allies can give you. You're not locked into, you can only work with them this way and you can only honor them this way, which I really enjoy in the tradition. Doing some answering over on Twitch, change my tab.
I was just doing something on Facebook, so we had a good moment.
So then we're going to start getting into some people. Even though, like in mine, we have written down Aoki, tiny nature spirits, but there was a human written there. I think those tiny nature spirits, those were related into like your little divas, the spirits of your trees, your plants, not necessarily fairy, but the spirit of the nature itself. Who did you have written down?
Yeah, so what I had recalled from the class was like I remember the Terracuna and like the little nature spirits as part of the master class, but for the Yanapak, the fourth one was traditionally it would be like Huascar Inca if you were from Peru and that was like for your lineage. But for personal things, it's you pick someone from your family in spirit that held the family together. So mine was my Aunt Karen. She was somebody who really like kind of I felt was kind of like the bridge and the glue for some cohesion of the family and different things of that nature. But if you think of that, usually families have one person that when you think of family reunions and things, that they're like this bridge that allows you to connect with parts of the family that you might not connect with as easily.
Right, kind of like that matriarch or the patriarch, that like everybody whose house that everybody goes to for your holiday, for your cookouts, for your major life decisions. Did you go talk to them about it? Did you get permission to go do your adulting? That person, right. Kind of puts the family together.
And I think it's an ancestral component because in this tradition, there is, as Zane has, especially on the online program, he had brought in like ancestor work one of the years. If you think about like we stand in the bones of our ancestors, and when we call in sacred space, we're calling in the significant people for Zane for the lineage, like who Zane's teachers and their teachers, and like going back to like Huascar Inca and Kari and all these things, that this connection here for the person that holds the family together is also potentially your bridge to starting to do ancestor work. So I think it's a real pivotal one. And he didn't really talk about the ancestor component in our class, but seeing how he's taught recently, I can see that would be a real easy segue to diving into ancestor work using somebody you knew, or hopefully knew, that's in spirit now that can start to be the bridge for you doing a lot deeper work with your ancestor spirits. And ancestors can be a whole separate stream, but just to touch on it now.
Yeah, that would be a separate stream and probably a 2-piece, probably. Just because that's a very vast discussion in of itself. For that person, I have a couple grandmothers. I didn't get to know very many of my grandfathers because a lot of them have passed beforehand. Or had strokes in younger years. So I didn't know them as what their healed self would have been in this lifetime. So it was kind of like, which grandma do I know that's kind of passed over? And then, kind of working from there. So in my notes, we have now the person with lots of energy.
Yeah, and so and this is where our notes kind of deviate a little bit. I had mine also like it was a person not with a lot of energy, but like a healer of some type in this life. And I picked Dr. Azui for mine because he was a healer and but lots of energy. I think what people with lots of energy tend to turn out to be healers or people of service.
Hmm. And see, it's funny because the healer is the next is number 5 or level 6 because we start at 0, so it gets a little confusing that way. And for that one, and this was also related to the like Europe who's, and for me, I'm like Martin Luther King kept coming in that year for all of this work for me. So then when you get into miraculous healer, um, you know, um, Solomon came in, and it was kind of funny between the two because the next one, your Inka, your person who can glow, that was Kuan Yin at level 6. So some of those I was like, you all could fit in different ones, but then they told me which one represented for this work in this year. But I had healer written down separate from
Mhm.
the lots of energy.
And what I had written down was somebody that started a tradition that went beyond their generation, which Dr. Zui did too with Reiki, but I put down Buddha for that one. And that was also somebody that would glow for me. So like there was a little bit of overlap for my folks too.
Hmm. And then you go from like your healer into your Inca. In the whole Inca level 6, like I said, Kuan Yin for me, this was somebody who could resurrect themselves. So Kuan Yin, Christ, I think there were certain other Buddhas who had this ability. This also equates into the Quechua version of the black hole, the dark sun, because it pulls in and then it, spits out into the white suns. But Kuan Yin was a very strong, being deity for me that year in that actual level, because then after that you get into Waracocha, the overseeing of all. Um, who did you have for your Inca?
Didn't I say Buddha? Oh
Did
no,
you?
that was tradition. No, I think I used Christ. I do use Christ. I shouldn't say think I do.
Yeah. Um, so these can flex and you can change who you're working with, because right now I'm like looking at that where I'm in, I don't know if Kuan Yin would be
Yeah.
in that place for me right now. Um, and in Cardinal, definitely the last few years, like I have more of a draw into turkey buzzards. So, they're not as cute and pretty, but they're fun. So
Mhm.
my bird would change into turkey buzzard rather than cardinal. So I can see changes for myself just in the last few years.
Yeah. And when it comes to the changes, if you think of it more that you're dealing with like a wedge of energy, like a DNA pocket, there's a lot of different figureheads you could put on the top of that. So it's not so much like you're dealing, from my view, the way I look at it is I'm dealing with the same energy. My figurehead of how I deal with that energy might shift, but ultimately I'm dealing with that same DNA pocket or energy wedge that is the serpent, that is the puma, that is whatever, even though the actual thing that I'm using to represent that might change.
Mhm. So ultimately, why are we going in through all of these different levels and these different beings? Because you can work with each one separately. And we were kind of even discussing before going live of how to work this so as not to scare people. So we're choosing the phrase channeling
Hmm.
to use and take on the energies of these allies for different aspects that you might be working through, be it healing for yourself or other people, or trying to get information to even conduct the healing. um it's funny, like I keep hearing that meme, I'm a snake when I think of like level 0. So I would have a hard time until I could step out of that humor about it and this preconceived notion of dealing with reptilian, or maybe use that as a fun way, making sure there's no underlying fear that I might have of bringing in a type of serpent or cold-blooded animal. Um, Now, like, have you actively, Hank, yourself said, I'm going to go to my Yanapak for
I
any
have
information?
I don't think I have consciously done it, but I've channeled my Yanapak before. It's more of an intuitive thing for me. Like I'll be working with a client and I'll know I need something from this wedge and I will just let it come in and move through me. And as part of the weekends that Zane has done, there's one weekend in particular where we do these energy processes to clear the channels, like to clear the pathways for these to come through. And then you start to connect and allow them to come through one at a time and see what information you get or how you respond to their presence, because it's not always like actual information. But I've zoned out before when I've done that, and I have a vague recollection of what I did in the healing, but essentially part of my Yanapak or part of my spirit people, however you want to phrase it, come through me, and in a way that I don't always have full recollection of what happened during the healing session.
Hence the channeling.
Hence the channeling.
Hence the channeling. I can't say that I've ever gotten to the point where I don't remember or know what I was doing. And that's probably because I am, could be control freak, right? But I want to be consciously aware of, especially the client. Like if they go into any sort of distress, that I want to make sure I'm in a space to handle and take care of that. Not saying that you're not, but just more of for me.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
there's different ways of doing it.
Yep. In fact, there's four. The way that I heard this, I don't remember who I got this from, but they described there's like four different levels of channeling. The first is like it's just information, like what mediums do, and they're getting information and they're breaking through the information and they're 100% in the control. They're driving the car. And then the next one is spirits driving the car, but you're next door in the passenger seat and you can grab the wheel at any time. And the next one is spirits driving the car and you're in the back seat, and there's a little bit more effort that needs to happen for you to come to the forefront to take control of the car. And then the fourth way is you're in the trunk, and that's when you don't remember stuff.
Sounds like true crime happened right there.
Yeah.
I can see why some of you are like, I don't want to do that. Was
Right.
there
Well,
involved?
was there what?
Chloroform involved.
Oh no. And usually like I'm kind of in and out, like I see a little bit what's going on, but I'm also stepping back, and it's kind of like I'm in the trunk, then I'm in the back seat, I'm in the trunk, then I'm in the back seat, and then like, hey, something weird's going on, I'm gonna hop up to the front seat now. So it's not like a all or nothing in any particular position. It's more of a gradient, if you want to think of it that way. Like how far detached are you and how fully in the flow are you? And there's no right or wrong to any of that. And it's also based on your comfort level with letting that happen for you, and your relationship with the Yanapak and your personal belief system about channeling, and the list goes on.
Yeah. So like I said, there's room to use it in any way, shape, or form in channeling. And this is probably my second favorite weekend that we do, mainly just to watch the other students. You know, we're kind of keeping an eye the whole time. Questions, comments, I'm just not getting it. Can you re-explain? Blah, blah, blah. But then like this weekend, and when everybody at one time is, channeling in and working, and just to watch a couple, there's always at least two every year, that are so uncomfortable in the very beginning of it that it's hard for them to get into doing the trance and the channeling, and that by the end of it, they usually are kind of falling and they're like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
Like, no, it wasn't bad at all. You still kind of think, because you're remembering before, but practice makes it comfortable and you realize how much control you have over it. So it's my favorite to watch back or to stand back and watch. I made a new phrase, watch back. It is a thing now.
Okay.
To see that it's kind of like a lot of growth that happens in like a couple hours, of the channeling part of the day.
Yep, for sure. And this is also something I think that usually happens on the sixth weekend or so. So like before you even get to this point, there is such a huge foundation of like already communicating with nature spirits and building these relationships and building the foundation that when you go to do this, that it can come innately and naturally. And doing it all together, I feel is just, it just makes you feel more at ease because everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's opening up to that energy. And I almost feel like once one person's riding that current, it kind of helps everybody else to jump in and have an easier time stepping into that experience. And then just practicing can really help too
Yeah.
afterwards.
No worries. You're not going to fall on the floor and start, inchworming around. Like that's not the type of things, right? When we say you're channeling, your serpent or your animal, you're not going to be running around flapping your arms thinking like, oh, why aren't I flying? Like that's not, I shouldn't say that, right? I guess somebody could.
Somebody could. I think that's different traditions that might be more prone to that, not ours.
Right. We have not seen that.
I have not seen that in one of the apprenticeship classes.
Zane, if you're lurking, teacher has been lurking every time we've been on so far. So let's see what he says. But a lot of times you might speak in words that at first maybe you're not understanding, right? Or you're like, this isn't even real words. And it's kind of like that attunement of learning real quick what they're saying and what they want to say and making the mesh happen, you and this animal. Of course, if it's one of the humans, not so hard. But, if you're trying to vocalize the information that a serpent or a bird is trying to tell you, there's a disconnect in communication at first until you work through it. And even if it doesn't make sense coming out of your mouth, doesn't make sense as you hear it in your mind and your spiritual awareness. It doesn't need to make sense verbally if you're understanding what's going on. Which, I think we've had that happen a few times, right?
Yeah. Or people are familiar with the term like light language. A lot of people will bring data in, energy in, it comes out in words that people don't understand, but it's about the energy of what's happening. And I'll do that a lot of times for clients. I'll be singing a chant. I have no idea what I'm singing. I hear it. I've even gotten a couple on recording and there's like consistent ones. There's like similar ones that come through all the time. And I finally like realized, oh, I've sang that one before. That one's come through like a lot. And then like over time, I figured out, oh, this is what I sing when I'm crossing a spirit over. This is what I sing. So like know that whatever's happening is exactly what's supposed to happen and you pay attention. And it's kind of like learning a new language and mapping an energy landscape of like what certain things are for you when you're doing healing work. And it's kind of a fun adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just reading some extra notes and I'm like, wow, we went more in depth than I even realized. And then apparently the weekend after that, we went into death rites.
Did we? Well, you know what? One year we might have had them reversed. Well, because there's a certain order to things and then other things can be moved around. So like I think death rites and Yanapak, you could swap those weekends technically. But either way, I think one year we did it one way and the next year we did it the other because of someone's schedule.
In the year of this binder, it happened in this way. In the year of the binder on the floor, it could have been a completely different way. And we haven't even looked at the third one. So, yeah, guys.
What we really need is a volunteer to come and compile all of Melissa's binders into one mega binder with a table of contents and an index.
It's daunting even for me looking at it. Because as I was like going back through, I'm like, every year there's notes in margins up in the top. And yeah, because I can like vaguely remember as I'm like, oh, I remember going back, flipping through, making a note over here because it correlates to like 3 weeks before. And yeah, it's daunting even for me, and it's my freaking handwriting. Yeah, guys, if you have questions, because right now I kind of feel like we're rambling a little bit to fill in the time. If you have questions, please ask.
I see people watching, but not a lot of questions, which is fine. But if you do have a question or a comment that will let us go in a different direction or deeper into the same direction, let us know. We'd be happy to to do that. And while you're thinking about that, again, we're talking about the Paco Kuna tradition of Peru, specifically the Qatari tradition, which is what our teacher Zane Curfman came up with, which is a cross-cultural nature mysticism tradition that combines like the teachings of up high in the mountains with the coastal traditions and all kinds of things that just blend together beautifully. It's all really the same inspiration, that they all just had different influences because of the Spanish coming in. Like the Q'ero weren't bothered hardly at all by the Spanish. The coastal traditions were varied village by village, but the result was a beautiful blending of this living tradition, and it just really meshes well together. So that's what we're talking about if you just joined us and are confused about what we're talking about.
Right,
And
like,
today is all about the Yanapak, our spirit allies. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, the whole tradition, like up in the mountain and the way they do, it's like it's so simple and yet so very effective. I think a lot of people, when you first hear the word like shamanism or nature mysticism and working in light, the first perception that comes to mind is, "Hey, Chris, it's a lot of work. It's all this, and so time consuming. And in this tradition, it doesn't have to be." Because I think a lot of us, especially in the metaphysical world, right? A lot of us kind of do some of this anyway without even realizing it. And so it was kind of fun to sit through with the teacher and get into the hows and whys and how it works. I'm like, oh, that's why that works. And I've been doing it. Or, oh, this part works. And if I kind of extend over this way or reframe it a little bit, it'll even work in this manner as well. Or there's a whole new insight into information. Oh, we got a question. Do you choose who's in your Yanapak based on preference or who seems interesting, or do you receive the people? Like, could you have a person you know nothing about and then have to learn who they are and realize why they're relevant? Yes to all the above, honestly. In my case, a couple of my people were ones that I was familiar with. And then there was like one in there that I'm like, I've heard of you, but I don't know much. Like, why are you putting yourself in this position for me? And had to go do some research. And then as soon as I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And the way that we got ours, Zane walked us through like a guided process where, everybody's had those guided meditations where you meet a spirit guide. I've done these at my concerts. You meet your Yanapak, and each one has a theme. So he's given us like what each theme is, and then we go one by one and you see what comes to you. And it's surprising sometimes. Like, I didn't think I would get a turtle. I was going to go turtle. I wanted a dragon, but like you get exactly the right medicine for you. And then it's up to you to develop the relationship. And I think that, I think he had said that if you didn't get one, then you would just, pick one. Like if you went through that whole process, didn't get one, you pick one, start to work with it. You can always shift it later, because again, we are really working with a particular wedge of energy, and all the stuff fits within that wedge of energy. And we're basically using a figurehead to access that particular DNA pocket of energy that we're learning to utilize and for ourselves and others.
Mm-hmm. And part of that too, like, so let's say you get an animal, like you can see the animal, but maybe you've never really ran into it. I think in one instance, like, I remember being like, I saw a certain type of salamander, and I was to the point, I'm like, I want to know what kind, like, what is its name, and spent probably an hour and a half, 2 hours. Because now, as I'm talking about this, memories coming back of like sitting in my son's taekwondo practice, and it was a longer one because they were training for a test coming up, and like website after website of the website trying to find the right pattern and coloring. And then ultimately I'm like, who cares? Does it matter? No, it's silent. Like, quit driving yourself crazy over this and go with the energy of the animal. It doesn't matter, if it's red on orange and 3 little dots versus, all red with green dots. It's a salamander. Let's see. It says, I don't recall doing this in succession, one spirit animal after another in one session. Did we?
This is Jennifer asking this, and I think she came in the year that we ended up having to go hybrid. Like it was like a partial in person, partial hybrid. I don't believe Zane went over the Yanapak in that particular class, and I have not seen him do it in the online classes yet. Because when you're building up to this, what we're talking about, it's really something that you're doing in person. So that would be a good thing to look forward to if one was going to jump into another in-person apprenticeship. But I don't recall him ever doing it in the hybrid group or just online.
Mm-hmm.
He might have talked about it, but we haven't done the art of channeling the Yanapak, because that is something that you're kind of riding the wave of your teacher when you're opening the door for that. Zane's holding the space, he's doing it, and it's kind of opening the thing for us to jump on. And I don't know how well that translates to an online experience.
Right. Yeah, keep asking questions, guys. We've got a few more minutes.
We got a lot more minutes.
Yeah. To answer questions. And that's a good point to help prove like how the apprenticeship can change year to year depending on how it's being structured. I've always been a fan of the in-person myself, because I am the hands-on learner. Hank, you do well with online as well, virtually.
Yeah, and there's benefits. I would say that when we do the in-person stuff, your head is spinning so fast, and you got so much in your energy. You're just integrating like crazy, that there's only so much bandwidth that you still have to learn something. And I think that was the beauty of the online. Zane has gone so far in depth to some of these things that he's never been able to do in person. But the in person, I think, gives you a better container to receive that more in-depth stuff. So I personally think that the blending of the two is where it's at. Like you do the in-person, and then between now and next month, here's all these virtual things from the virtual apprenticeship that you can watch and you'll work on in between the in-person ones. And I think that's really like the best combination personally. But I know some people just, they look online and they zone out. It just doesn't work for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. It's words. Words right. On screen, words.
Which is why what I did is I started having like in-person review days. We all went to the center, and I put the videos on, and even though like it was all intended to be online, we watched them together, and then people had questions, I answered the questions. So like next part of the reason we're doing this is we're creating awareness for Zane's work, because we're holding an apprenticeship next year. Mm-hmm. And so like when we're doing those in-person ones, I'm assuming it will be hybrid and he'll have online things we can make available to people. Hey, let's come together and just watch it. Someone bring some popcorn. We'll watch these things. And Zane might not be there, but at least me and maybe Melissa will be there to answer questions. But I find that what you're really getting is people coming together, and their combined curiosity is that propels a question or an idea or something that can take everything in a whole new direction, because that's really the gold in all of this stuff, is in the questions that come up for students and mm-hmm. where you go that wasn't on the syllabus. That's really where Zane excels.
Right. Well, and I think having that hands-on, right? Because even in one of our very first beginning apprenticeships was, bringing in all this information, but having the hands-on practice and use of it. So that first year got a little bit longer than we anticipated, because students were like, we want to actually practice what we just learned. So that changed for the next year. It's like, okay, now part of this is automatically like you learn how to do puklai. Okay, now we're going to break the class up. Everybody's going to do it. Everybody is going to, learn doing certain things and actually have hands-on do it, teachers right there in the room if suddenly you have a question or, you're right there. So having the hybrid part where if everybody's coming together watching, if you have questions, you have us to talk to and ask about, and then say, hey, but you know what? I actually want to try this. Great. Yep. We're going to split the class up, and guess what we're doing now? Get up out of your chair.
Yep. We've done that before too. We had like a once a month clinic where we got together and that was all we did, is practice on each other. And then sometimes we would go over the soul retrieval, or how to do the sparring exercise, or how to do the yananchikui, or there's all kinds of different things, but then you would just practice on each other, and that helps to build confidence. and just your I don't know. It's just that the real learning is in the doing and
Hmm.
who you're being while you're doing it, and then it just starts to mesh, and then it really becomes part of who you are. I use it all the time. It's part of my daily practice, and I don't even have to think about it. I'm just moving effortlessly to just normal human hat to shaman hat to healer hat to gonna mess with Melissa Mercury retrograde hat to whatever hat. I had to throw it in there. I know.
It's not real.
I do. On April Fools, we should have a streamer. We just talk about Melissa and how much she loves astrology. I think that would be a great time for her.
Oh, yeah. Let me tear it apart for you. Okay. Um,
I don't care. It's fun. I like it.
Melanie asks, how do I find out my spirit guide's name?
Well, for the what guides in general, like if you're talking about like Northern tradition and animal totems, that would be just meditating, asking them for a name. You might get it energetically, and then you pick a name that represents an energy well, because it's really about an energy signature. From this tradition specifically, the animals themselves don't come with a name other than it's a puma or it's a snake, but you could ask and have that's part of you developing your relationship with them. And then for the other ones that are humans, you would clearly have that label. I mean, I guess it would be possible that you would get a figure that you know is that, but you don't know who it is, in which case you'd have to, you know, develop that relationship. But if you were using a Dr. Zui or Buddha or Kuan Yin, those you clearly have the label. It would just be the animals that you'd have to work a little harder to get a name for.
There's been a couple times where some of them are like, no name.
Yep.
For whatever reason. And that's not a dig on you, right? It's just that's not important for the work that they're helping you do. Like, get out of that mundane. It's a human concept needing for everything.
I channeled once, but
I was going to say the downside to the human part of the brain, right?
Yeah. And there was one time it was probably one of the most clear, crisp channelings I ever did. I was in it for like 3 hours talking very clearly, and it was clearly in my vertical alignment for my soul, but it would not give a name. And it was like, are you this person? Are you this person? Nope, nope, nope. They clearly had a name. I think they were just messing with us. Like, we're not giving you the name.
Could be. I mean, I have always said, especially spirit guides or people, beings that were once human, like they understand that personality and they can be just as sarcastic as you are. If you are of that person, because that's what you are comfortable with, that's what you're going to understand. You know, how to make that meshing with you, to make that comfortability come through. You know, I've got a reader who will sit there and ask its pendulum, are you going to lie to me? I'm like, you are the only person I know who uses a pendulum that feels the need to ask that. I'm like, you do understand this is just your higher self making the answer for you. So why do you lie to yourself?
That is a good point.
I got a side eye and and kind of like a walk away.
Well, if you think about it, how often do we lie to ourselves all the time? And I'm tapping into my higher self to get information, but like I don't want the truth. I'd rather be finding my lie. Like, so you get the answer a lot of times with a pendulum that you're looking for. And when you're looking at that type of work, I would suggest like you put answers in envelopes. Like this is how me and Anya like figured out where we were going to move. We would take all the cities we were considering, write it on index cards, put them face down. We shuffled them up. She pendulum got Westlake. I pendulum. We shuffled them again. I pendulum got Westlake. We didn't know what city was what. We weren't even looking that hard in Westlake because it was a lot more expensive. But then we looked and we found the perfect place. So like if you think you're going to be psyching yourself out when you're using some of these things, like do something like that where you are putting things in envelopes or index cards and you don't know what you're doing, and then you can validate and you're getting the pure energy and you're not letting the mind influence your outcome, because it can. Because point of your belief can create your reality, and you can skew the very answer you're looking for just because part of you has a preference for something or not something, and you're not really open to the right answer. And that's all about getting rigorously honest with yourself and being willing to have the truth and still giving yourself the freedom to not choose it. But you got to get honest with yourself for that to work, really.
Right. Um, which is why pendulums really aren't kind of like my favorite thing, right? Because it's so easy to
That is.
subconsciously get the answer that you want. And be like, but my pendulum said, I'm like, yeah, is that what you wanted to hear? And were you the one holding it? That's a whole other science debunking
Yeah.
on that. But maybe we have a whole episode of debunking certain things.
Or yeah, or a episode of divination tools and like ins and outs and how to use them, because there's definitely a time and place for things. But if you're head tripping at all about the question, I would not bother muscle testing. I wouldn't bother penduluming, and you got to look for something else, or do some work to get really clear. Because if you're head tripping about it, then you're already there's certain things that just aren't going to work as well for you.
Right. I do trust or use pendulums. It's been a while, but in like healing, because you can use it for certain energy centers and trying to find things. Because at least for that point, like not using it for an answer that I want to hear, it's performing a task as a tool, slightly completely different and slightly different use. Oh,
I don't remember this. I
right.
believe you.
Hank's
Wow.
mom. Hi, Hank's mom.
Well, I didn't remember that, but that is, I do live in, not only do I live in a W city, like it's Westlake High School, so it's even my initials, WHS. So like I live in my city, kind of, not really.
Oh Lord, I'm gonna hear about it all day today, aren't I?
No, you're not. That's been true since I moved here, and I've never brought it up once until now. So
His mom reminded you.
Mom reminded me, like, oh my gosh, I was psychic back before I even knew how cool it was. I predicted what city I was going to live in. No, I didn't remember that at all. Well, thank you for that reminder.
Chair Bears, I think it was Chair Bear who asked last week about like first psychic things. So I wonder if that one was first before your other one. So yeah, you guys got any questions? Now we're way off topic again.
Well, that's fine. I think we're probably the best at this when we're off topic.
Maybe. Yeah, it's a little more fun, less dry.
We should have a 10-minute subject and then just roll with whatever comes up.
Watch Hank.
Well, that's fun.
Your mom become the mom of the stream. Everybody's gonna Hank's mom.
I would not doubt it. Like when we did the expo, she was all like, people would come up to me all the time. They're like, I just love your mother. Like she was talking us up, talking the expo up. She just loved participating, and I'm not surprised to see her on the stream and contributing and hanging out with us.
Between your mom and Hawaiian grandma at the expo.
Oh man, and they get along wonderfully. I think they've hung out at least once. Have you, Mom? Have you hung out with Grandma?
Right, and I have that song in my head too. But
except you should go by my first or middle name Henry, because you need the syllables. Henry's mom has got it going. Right? Well, you don't want to get copyright infringement for me singing that song.
Stop it! Shush your face.
I know. I don't know if my notes were on par enough in order to hit the algorithm to get shut down for copyright, but we'll see. I hope I did just tank our stream because we're going to get taken down because of that.
I don't know. We'll find out about 15 minutes after stream ends if like YouTube is going to have a violation.
It's happened before. I don't like it, so I try not to sing anything copywritten.
Let's see. Just making sure I don't think we missed any questions. We haven't had questions. No. But it would be fun doing the in-person hybrids and having the kind of, I don't know, Hank, we haven't even talked this part out, like how often we would offer the in-person. So you went through, you absorbed all that information, you took your notes, and you still come in, you're like, but what does it mean? But
right? Yeah. Because there's like, it's a lot of it, energy work, a lot of data, and then it's almost as you'd start to do the like, I really think where it's going to be at is like the review days coming together to watch things, and the clinics where you can have some hands-on experience. They're kind of like bringing everything into focus. because how often have you been choosing things in your life and you really don't know why you chose it, but like you look back a year later and now it's clear I was choosing that because of this. It happens all the time. Like things come into focus over time. And I think that's really, the apprenticeship is great, however it's going to work, but having an ongoing thing where you can bring it into focus, part of it's you just using it every day and it comes into focus. But if you aren't like me, like I used it every day right from the beginning. But you just got to put it to use. You got to keep it at the front of mind. And there's a shift where it suddenly does come into focus, and you just suddenly got how all the stuff that you just learned fits into your daily life, and you begin to live the mesa. You are the living mesa at that point.
Right. And it is perspective, right? Because sometimes when you're in the middle of all the learning, it looks different to when you can step out and look at it or put it into practice. Just like life experiences, you're going through something, it's like really horrible. And then like 6 months later, you're like, oh, okay. That's why. Looking back, it doesn't seem as bad as it felt at the time.
And in some ways, you're ascending this energetic mountain of your soul, and in the middle, when you're down in the jungle still, it's like a lot harder to figure out what's happening. But as you get out and can look over the treetop, and then you're getting higher and higher, you just have a different perspective in general, and it all starts to fit together. And then you go down the mountain, you climb up the next mountain, right? Maybe.
I ain't climbing down. I'm going to sled down.
They do that. They slide down the glaciers. Like part of the Cordillera Festival, they used to go up and they would like hunk off a piece of glacier ice, and then they would like slide down the mountain, and they would bring like the ice to the village or whatever. I think they're not allowed to do that anymore. They still can slide down the mountain, but they're, because of the glaciers melting and stuff, they're not supposed to like take a chunk of ice anymore. But like that was actually a thing. You can slide down. It's fun.
Yeah. I'm like, no. If I climbed up, I'm going to do the fun way down.
Hang glide.
Yeah, no, maybe not so much. Sledding's fun.
No, it's on my official bucket list to see you hang glide off a mountain in a back glider. I think that would be great.
You're gonna have an incomplete list then. In your life.
Maybe next lifetime. I'm gonna leave it on my list. You never know. I'm gonna start working on you now.
Oh no, I don't mind heights until I have to jump off of them, or like same reason why I don't like roller coasters. Going really fast I do not like the feeling of my stomach and intestines moving in my body. So no, they don't belong up here. I don't find it thrilling. We will sled down. We're not jumping off shit. And gliding. But yeah, so, if you think you might want to join us next year in an apprenticeship, there would be online. Because I'm like looking at Brooke, and I'm like, Brooke, I know is out of state. So how would we make this work for, people who are out of state who can't come up even once a month, for in person?
Well, so what I would say is be an advocate for your area, because we have the ability to do a lot of this online. The Hatan Karpay itself, if we only do what we absolutely have to do, that can be a week-long workshop. So like we could have the virtual part and say, hey, Brooke, you got enough people in Florida that want to be in this tradition. We come down to you and offer the Hatan Karpay, or you come up, usually once a year, we do something in Virginia. It's not as in-depth as doing the 7 weekends, but like it gives you the energetic foundation for everything else. And I think the container to really get it on different levels than if you just did the online only.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's just a challenge. We're gonna figure this out. Yeah. It might be in like fall time, because that's when the villains come out down there. Like that's when I go down and do all of the work, and then I go play.
I am highly motivated to create events in Florida because I really like Florida. I love it so much now. I don't like going to the summer. It is humid. I don't like that. But like the fall, the winter, like I've been there for Thanksgiving, and I found an all-you-can-eat vegan buffet on Thanksgiving. It was so good. Oh my gosh. Anyway, if I start talking about food, I'm going to go down a bad rabbit hole tangent. We don't want to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, if we do some Karpais, initiations and whatnot in person, that's one thing we'll actually have to.
Yeah. And for that matter, me, Melissa, and Zane, we all can do the Hatan Karpay. So, like, if you needed to do something one-on-one, though, there's something like there is a magic shift that occurs when you have about 8 people. When there's like a group of people, it creates. It's just different. It's kind of like the collective consciousness, the empowerment, and everything. You can do it one-on-one, but like the real magic is in with a group of about 8 people is what you ideally want. 12 would be super optimal, but like the more the better in a sense. And then if you have some alumni in your group, it's almost like it exponentializes like what the empowerments that are received, because you're like having so many people that have already gone through it, however many times they've gone through it, all holding space for you to jump on that trampoline and go way higher than you would have gone if you were just on the trampoline on your own, instead of like 12 people jumping so you go higher when you're jumping off that thing. That's kind of like an analogy of what doing this work in a group does for you.
Right. Well, and I'm just thinking back to, I think it was the last year we did in person, before COVID and everything hit, that that class, all of their initiations were done by me, you, and Zane. So everybody was getting 3 times the initiation, because they were getting all 3 of us doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a couple of them going, oh my God, but each one felt different. And because technically we're all different people and having that. And so some of them really enjoyed it. I think a couple of them were like wiped out for the day.
Yeah, a little bit
coming in. But everybody seemed to really enjoy that one. So yeah, we will have to get those dates put in together, like plan this out, get the dates, and start letting people know. So anybody traveling in can start planning for that.
We should meet today later and work on that, and then loop Zane in and make sure that he's available for these dates. But we're going to do this regardless. If something happened and Zane wasn't there, Melissa and I would move forward. We would do that. So like, just don't have a point of view about how the program looks, but our intention is to have Zane for all of it. But if we ended up needing to, we could move forward and be flexible and allow it to happen.
Yeah,
however it's going to happen.
I mean, push comes to shove. I mean, he lives in Ohio. We have an address and vehicle. We have duct tape, garbage bags.
Yeah,
our video.
Half the time he's not home, man. I know better. Can't just show up.
I watch through crime to make things happen.
Yeah, like he was living in a different place for a little bit, and like I was there a lot. I was like minutes down the road from Zane's house, and like twice a week sometimes. And I'd be like, "Are you around?" I'm like down the street from you. He's like, "Oh no, I'm here this week." He was never home. And then the one time he's there, I wasn't. It was just so ironic, Yeah. Melissa has a plan. Melissa always has a plan.
Always have a plan. And if you come up with something that needs a plan, I can probably get one real quick for you.
But if anybody's interested, if you make sure to message me or Melissa, give us your email, as like I'm going to be getting like an email list link that we can start putting on these streams that you can sign up and you can get notified as things come out. But just let us know you're interested so you're on our radar. We can reach out to you once we have dates. If you have questions about anything after watching all this, put in the comments. We'd love to design a stream around your questions. We already have we're going to talk about entities. We're going to talk about ancestors. That's not going to be this tradition. Probably it's going to be like broader conversations.
Spin-off, yeah.
Yeah, let us know what you want to hear about, and we can go there.
Thank you. I take that as a really big compliment. I feel like I need some big gold chains though, and a helicopter. I mean, I can make it look like I know what I'm doing.
You can't fool all the people all the time, though.
Just the majority is all you need. Just the majority.
That is unfortunately true.
Yeah,
at least in this country.
Or a cool van, right? The kidnapper van, just write shaman class on the side of the van and show up. How many people will get into that one unknowingly? Be like, haha, surprise, you're going to learn about yourself and all the things you ignore.
I got a van. We can use my van. One time I gave him a ride somewhere, and when I turned the car off, the display screen and everything just stayed on. It was completely frozen. I had to unplug the battery to reset the thing because Zane fried my electrical system. It was kind of fun.
He never fried
totally side note.
He never fried my car, thankfully. I have not had him in the Durango yet, so let's see what happens. It's got a lot more techie stuff than the Avenger. Ooh, is that a level of how good your shamanism is? Is if you can fry out cars? I'm gonna have to start trying now. My car is under warranty.
Do not try to fry my car, anyone ever. Please don't.
Huh.
Like I actually, when I work with electronics, like I learn a technique in Access where you put like an energetic bell jar over stuff, and it like helps protect electronics, and it worked. And one time at lunch, me, a former business partner, and their partner, we were driving to lunch, and the GPS got all wonky. It was like not working at all. It was get glitchy, and I'm like, oh, we just forgot to do the bell jar thing, and I was like, and it just instantly
Fixed it.
it fixed itself. So there's something to be said for that. And it's not like it has to happen automatically. If you are one of the people that are prone to blow out light bulbs and fry electronics, you can put out the attention to yeah. I heard the nickname Sparky as a kid, and it wasn't just cars. Anyway, that is a big tangent that we don't need to go through. This is the disadvantage of having one's mother on the stream. She's going to be calling me out like.
Cool, Karen. And I think I've got your info stashed in like 3 places, and I know where to find you. So we'll get Karen on the handwritten list here. Yep. You know, in all of the notebooks that I have around me from all of the classes, and I'm knocking crap over. Pay no mind to that in the background. Meant to do that. So meant to do that.
Right.
Come on, pen right. There we go.
No, I'm kidding, Mom. You're totally cool. She's like, I won't watch again.
Oh, no, Mom, you gotta come. You gotta keep him in line. You gotta come, Mom. Come for me. And we'll go to lunch.
Yeah. No, it actually became a bit of a complex because it wasn't just cars. Like people who would borrow something from me that then wouldn't give it back, their houses burned down. Like a professor in college, his car and his house. Like a friend who I played Dungeons and Dragons with, and then then a friend who borrowed Braveheart, and then there was my friend Chris who like borrowed something, almost didn't give it back. Something caught fire, but he put it out in time and then he gave it back. But I have an alibi for each time. But it got to the point where there was even a sign put up in my bedroom that says, you know, not bringing things back may result in loss of your possessions through fire, as a joke. But that's Sparky was my nickname for that reason.
It's like you're an X-Men, Hank. You just set stuff on fire.
Yeah, well, I do like fire a lot, but I do not try to set things on fire that aren't supposed to be. I did set the lawn on fire on the weekend by accident. That was fun.
So me and your mom got plans.
That's fine. You, Grandma, and my mom can have just the old Melissa Club over there. That's fine.
You know, goals in life. And my time as a home health aide, like I have an appreciation for like the stories that people have through life. So I love listening to like Hawaiian grandma stories. And I'm sure if I had time with your mom, the stories that she would have.
I'm sure I get to hear them often.
So
I want Grandma to tell her stories, though. We ought to have, you know, can we get Grandma on somehow? Can we?
That might require me having to go to her house. Gonna have to put up at least like on Twitch. There are some warnings that might have to go up.
Ooh, Grandma comes with a warning label. This is really good.
Yeah, because Grandma's not going to censor herself, right? So I'm like, okay, there will not be a delay to take something down real quick. Like, how do we? That might have to be a recording, edited.
That we can edit. Well, that would make it easier because we could get her on a psychic fair day, take her in a room, and well, you will be busy on a psychic fair day, but it makes it plausible. Possible.
Maybe.
I think it would be worthwhile. I think it would be, and get Zane on there because she's going to yell at him. It would be great.
Oh, she yells at just about everybody.
I know. And she hits you if she knows you well enough. That's how you know Grandma loves you. She won't just yell at you or tell you what's up. she'll like take her walker and she'll bop you like really good.
Her cane. It's her cane.
What? It's cane, whatever.
She's not picking up a whole walker and smacking you.
If she was using a walker, 100% she would. 100%.
If she had the balance, she probably would.
Yeah.
But yeah, now this whole, and I would probably have to get Maria involved.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to need you there to help keep her from wandering around the apartment all night while trying to record.
We may need a mobile camera crew for Grandma.
Probably.
That would be fun. This idea has merit. It is a lot of work, and I think it would be worth it. Of course, I'm not the one that's going to do the majority of the work. That would be the A team, you, that would be doing that.
I'm tired already. WWE Grandma, right? Yes. It's funny because that made me many side notes later. I think everybody saw like the videos of, I think it was down in Florida, Brooke, correct me if I'm wrong, like the boat with people that ended up in a fight because a boat pulled into the wrong place, blah, blah, blah. And one of the people grabbed the chair and was like bashing people like the WWE. And so now I see videos of Renaissance fairs where these knights, instead of jousting properly, like they're walking around with folding chairs. And now to picture Hawaiian Grandma with a folding chair. I'm gonna have to get one just for the giggles of it. Okay. So I've got Karen and I've got Brooke. Was there anybody else that maybe wanted to get on the list for now? Make sure I didn't miss anybody.
Yeah, or comment and tag us or send us a message if you're watching this on the replay.
Sounds like Florida.
Yeah, sounds like Florida.
But yeah, we are a long way off the Yanapak discussion.
We are, and we should just plan for that in the future. Let's plan 15-minute topic and then free form the rest of the time. It is way more organic, in my opinion. It's fun. As long as you got people asking questions. If you guys don't ask questions, then it's really hard for us to interact.
Yeah. I'm just making sure I have the info, and I do. So do we have a possible, hey, Rosie, of what we might want to talk about next week? Dun, dun, dun.
You guys have well, I mean, what do we want to talk about next week? Do we want to show how to do a basic opening of sacred space? Do we want to dive in a very minimal thing to the ancestors, not intending it to be the two-part stream, just in this tradition, the ancestor work? Do we want to have another suggestion from a loyal fan here? Bob has to go. See you next week. That means she is going to show up, but only for you, which is fine.
See, because she likes me better.
Yeah, and we went from Peruvian Nature to WWE Granny. Gotta love it.
I mean, don't tell Zane.
Well, he'll watch the replay and he'll be like, what happened on the stream that you're talking about Grandma hitting people with chairs? No.
Do all of the all of, right? It's just a one long all day ramble stream of all the things that we come up with. Because I know we need to put together the spirit allies that somebody suggested before.
Well, the spirit allies we just talked about, that is the Yanapak.
The entities and the spirits and things like that.
The entity class. The other thing we could do that would be a piggyback off of this would be the 7 levels, like the levels of perspective and how you work with what shows up in your life. And then that could lead into Chalpi work, because how the bands of power like help you to bring energy in one place and elevate it. So like we could plan levels next week and then Chalpi the week after. Or vice versa, Chalpi next week and levels after. Either way, they're not the same, but I see parallels where we could springboard them off of one another.
So we're at 4 topics so far.
We're at 4 topics so far.
So we've got our entities, cause spirits, earthbounds, those type of things. We have ancestors, 7 levels, Chalpis. So that's it.
And then the question is, do we want to keep always Thursday Nature Mysticism and do those other things that are going to be more tangents at a different time? And if so, should we just plan like, I don't know, like that can be an offline conversation, like when we got to do it. But of course,
Yeah,
maybe,
I don't want to be bored with it.
yeah.
So
How about how to apply it to daily practice was a suggestion from Jennifer.
um, that might fit into like certain topics, like how you would, which I think we've done with a couple others today, only because it's such a bigger topic of like, now you would apply it to this way, apply it to that way. But yeah, because I think in the very first conversation, we had talked about why we chose or stick with this path, because it is something that you can do in daily practice, unlike some other traditions that it's harder to use every day, at least like in my opinion. But yeah, we could come up with some daily applications, give examples of. So, okay, well, I think we should quit rambling online and make them listen to it. Well, we can't make them. You guys can log off anytime you want. But this is off-air planning that we're into now. So,
Time to end.
Yeah, because work starts here soon. So, well, thanks for hanging with us, guys, and all of our rambling. If you come up with other questions or topic suggestions, feel free to email, message, whisper, whatever platform you're on, or send email. We got our contact info there on the bottom of the screen of how to find us. And we will gladly take suggestions or questions. We may answer right back to you privately, depending on the question, and or use it on stream. So if you're okay with us using a personal question on stream, let us know that. Otherwise, if it's a general broad question, we'll answer it on stream.
Yep. And for my local people, I am at the store today until 7 o'clock doing readings and healings, and there is a Zoom option. So for my people who are not local, you could also, I'm at Goddess Sleep, working out of the store today, virtually and in person. If you're interested, any Thursday you're watching this, I'm here.
Yeah. So come keep them busy. So
yep.
Just bother me all day.
No, that happens. I want to bother Melissa all day a little bit.
Marianne is doing well. They're finishing up some stuff. We still don't have a date yet of when we're going to go back to Wednesday morning live. I don't know. Heck, maybe that's one time frame we could kind of fill in. Maybe Wednesday mornings for some of our offshoots, since there's so many people that are used to Wednesday morning.
Possibly, depending on the time and how long, that might be a possibility. I'd have to make sure that it works out. But yeah, we can talk offline about that.
Yeah. So, but thanks for hanging with us, guys. Please like, share, tell friends to join us if they're interested in this topic. It helps conversation go when we have new friends joining in the conversation.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time. Bye.